All right, class, I wanted to go into unwrapping. This is one of the students' files, and I'm not picking on them particularly. This is just using them as an example of some things that I'm seeing in pretty much everybody's work. Seems like you guys are really not getting the concept of unwrap at all. Now, we already did a video on pixel density, and so you can see this room's got really bad problems with pixel density. I mean, you can see these are not squares back here, so this part on here, this bitmap that you're going to put on here is going to stretch. This one over here has got small pixels on it. This has got bigger pixels on it. This has got huge pixels back here. As a matter of fact, this is stretched because they're not square, and so this room has got a ton of issues. So I'm going to go in here and deal with one of these. So let's just pick this one. I'm just going to go and hide everything else. And I'm going to come in here and deal with the pixels that are on this and how this should be unwrapped. I've yet to see anybody, maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's somebody who's doing it right, but I've yet to see anybody in the class that actually unwraps something correctly. Okay, so I'm going over here, and this has got a UV unwrap on it. You see how this is italicized over here? That lets me know that this unwrap that's on this is actually on more than one object, because when this is italicized, it means this is on several objects. And since I've already been in here, I actually know that this is two things grouped together. So I'm going to open up the group. Excuse me. So you have the box back here, and then you have these little pieces, which is all fine. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to just hide the rest of the stuff and just deal with this right here. Okay, so we've got this box, okay, and now I want to show you something in here. That is, I've turned this on and off. This has two sets of mapping coordinates on it, okay? That's the coordinates that are embedded in the polygon itself, okay, that it's embedded into it, and this is floating over the top of it, okay? So I want to embed this in. So I'm just going to go ahead and convert this to a poly, and it will bake those coordinates in. So now it won't have two sets of coordinates. It'll just have those top sets. They've overwritten the coordinates that are in there. Once you do an unwrap, you want to collapse it in so that it's permanent, because if you delete it off of there, then you've lost that coordinates. So now you'll see when I close this on and off that it's all the same. Okay, so I'm going to open this up. And we'll go in here, and I'll just turn off our checkers. We don't need those. And so here's the unwrap. Now, basically, I think what this person has done is done a flat mapping. So they've gone in here and done a flat mapping, and it's flattened everything out based on its angle, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not always the way you want to do it. Organic kind of shapes, that's not going to help you much. But for this kind of shape, it's okay. But this is an intermediate state. This is not finished. Okay, this is flat mapped, but this is not finished. Okay, and I'll show you why. If you render this out of template and take it into Photoshop and Paint, okay. So here it is in Photoshop, and let's just go ahead and make a layer here, and then I'm just going to go ahead and just fill that with a brown color, like wood, okay. And let's make us another layer, and then I'm going to come back on top of it and paint on this. Okay, so let's say that I'm aging this and I'm painting it and staining it and stuff, and so I'm painting on this. Okay, so I'm going to paint here. Okay, and I want this is the front, and then I want it to wrap around the edge. Okay, but I don't have an edge stitched in here, so I'm assuming that this is the edge. Okay, so I would paint in here, and the problem I'd have to get in here is I'd have to try to match this pixel across so that this wrapped around. Okay. So now one of the things that I do is but when I'm working on a texture map, I create an action for saving my file, okay, an action. I don't know if you guys are familiar with actions, but basically it's a macro recorder that will record several things that I want to do. So you just click this button right here, and I can record a new action, and this is going to be save chess as a targa file, okay? So you can call it whatever, doesn't matter, but this tells me I'm going to save this chest texture as a targa file, and I hit record. Now it's recording everything I do. So I'm going to go File, Save As, change this to a targa, and I'm going to call it chest diffuse, okay? Chest underscore DIF for diffuse. So I know it's a diffuse map, okay? And once I save that, come on. All right. And then I hit stop. Now, from now on, every time that I adjust this, all I have to do is click that button right there and it'll save it and update it. Okay, so I don't have to go through File, Save As, Target, the whole thing. Okay, so let's go back over here. As a matter of fact, let's save it again because I want the wireframe off. Okay, save that. All right, so I'll go over here to Max. And what I'm going to do in our material editor is, let's get this material. And so I'm going to unplug the checker for right now, and I'm going to drop in my bitmap that I have on here. So we're going to go in here, get the bitmap, drop it on. Okay, then I can see the bitmap in here. Okay, another thing that I'm going to do while I'm in here is you'll see the lights, or the person's already got lights in here, okay, but I don't want to deal with those lights while I'm doing this, so I'm going to go Control L, and that will turn on the default lights. So Control L turns lights on and off. It doesn't delete the lights, but I'm going back to the default lights. I don't want these shadows in here. I don't want to be in realistic. I want to be in shaded mode. Now you can see that as I painted this, it didn't wrap around there. Oh my gosh, it went over there. I wonder why it did that. Well, I can tell you exactly why it did that. Because this piece right here is not the piece that goes next to this, okay? So if I come into here and I grab this edge, the corresponding edge will turn blue, and you'll see this is the piece that goes here, not this piece, okay? Okay, so I can deal with that. So I just come back into Photoshop. And I'm going, okay, let's get this off of here. Okay, and now what I need to be doing is painting this down here, across there. Okay, all right, so let's save that. Then I go back over here and it'll update. And now that's wrapping around there correctly, but notice that it doesn't line up, okay? That's the problem with the way this is laid out now. This is going to be a nightmare to texture because since these two pieces are not stitched together, I'm painting them as two separate islands. That's a problem, okay? So this is not the way that this should be finally laid out. So this is just the beginning of the stage. The next stage is to stitch this all together. What you're trying to do is unfold it, like opening a box and unfolding it. Like if you took a cardboard box and you cut it down one side so that you could actually unfold the cardboard box down flat. That's what you're trying to do, okay? This is not unfolded. This is just the intermediate step. The next thing is this needs to be all stitched together. So I'm going to start with this piece and say, okay, this is my piece. Okay, and I'm going to build from it. So now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select this edge and then I'm going to loop that to grab it. Okay, and there you can see that corresponding edge turns blue. Then all I have to do is right click, stitch selected, and now, oh my gosh, it brought this up there and stitched it on. Okay, same thing here. I'm going to pick this one, loop that, right click, stitch selected. Now that's all stitched together. So now when I paint on this edge, it'll float right around there. Okay, I want to get the top. Okay, I want to get the top on here. So this is the edge, there's that edge, I want this top. I'm going to loop that. Now, if I loop that whole thing and stitch it in here, it's going to do kind of a strange thing that it's going to round this edge because mathematically it can't do that. And there may be times that I want to do that, but on this particular piece, I probably wouldn't do this. So I'm going to deselect those pieces right there and then stitch this in. And so that unfolds like that. Okay. Now, another thing you want to do is sometimes you'll see some green lines going inside. Now, if your green lines are around the edge, and that's okay in there because that's a hole, but sometimes you get them kind of breaking in here. So you just want to right click in here, okay, and go ahead and hit weld selected, and that will weld all those vertices together to make sure that they're all stitched together. Okay, so now that part is stitched together. That's good. Now, so a couple other issues is this piece right here is the back. Okay. Now, the way this is set up in the room is I don't ever going to see the back. Okay. I'm never going to see the back to this. Okay. And so I'm going to go ahead and put the checker back on this right now. We're never going to see the back. So I don't really need this piece, and I'm just going to take it out here and drop it out of here. I'm also not going to see the bottom. Okay, so I don't need that piece. So I'm not concerned about those pieces because I'll never see them, so I don't really care about them. Okay, now the next thing I need to do is I've got some inside pieces in here, and I want that to be my base piece right there. So I need to come in here, and I want to stitch this front side together. So I need to know which one that is, which is that one. Okay, so when I pick this one, then I can see that's the edge that this stitches onto. Okay, so I'm going to pick that edge. Okay, I need to turn this off to select everything and pick that one edge and then stitch selected, and there it goes. I want to stitch this side. I want to stitch that side. Stitch this one. Oops, moved it. Undo that. Stitch selected. Okay, now that's that piece unwrapped with all those in there. Okay, now I can't actually stitch this into that small hole, so this is going to have to remain as a separate piece. Okay, so I'm just going to move it out. Okay, I always move everything out of this area in here, which I explained some of that in my previous video in which that you're dealing with several things. Okay, so let's deal with this one. Okay, so go here, stitch selected, stitch selected, stitch selected. Okay, so now I've got this front piece, which wraps around it. So as I paint on it, my textures are going to wrap around it, wrap to the top. Okay, and then I've got these little insets as separate pieces in here. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So now I could come in here and select this, and then I could pack it in here, and you'd think we were done, but not really, because it has some issues. Now, I'm going to come over here to my checkers, and I'm going to, the smaller the checkers, to a certain degree, you can get them too smaller, but the smaller the checkers, to me, the easier it is to tell where I've got issues. So to me, this checkers were way too big on here. So we'll go with that. Okay. And now I can kind of see the size of my checkers and everything better. Now, can you see how these are not square? That's because this is squashed. Okay. So I'm going to come in here and pick this piece. Okay. And then I'm going to come up to my scale, and I'm going to non-proportional scale it this direction until I can get those to be squares. Okay. They don't have to be perfect, but you want them as close as possible. Okay, so that's pretty much squares right there. Okay. Now, but there's an issue with this. Okay, because the way this was done is now the top is not squares. The sides are squares, the front squares, but the top is not square. Okay, so what I have to do is go into my vertices. Okay, and let's move these out of our way for right now. So I'm going to go to my vertices, and I'm going to pick these because that's the top. And then I'm going to go up to my move tool, and I'm going to get it so it constrains it's going to move in one direction. And then I'm going to start pulling those. Okay. And you can see that somewhere around in there, that's pretty much squares now. Yeah, that's pretty good right there. So when this piece was originally done, it was skewed. This was not out correctly. Okay. So now that piece looks pretty good. Okay. But now I can see that these pieces in here are not correct. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this piece and put it up next to the other one. Take this out. Let's take these two. And actually, I think I want, yeah, that's, side by side this way. I could adjust both of these at the same time. Okay, so this inside piece back here is not correct. So I'm going to come in here and grab this set of vertices, and then I'm going to constrain to move these straight up and down. And as I move these, then see I can get those to be squares in there. So it was squashed in there. So now those look pretty much all like squares. But now I have a problem in here. I've got a pixel density problem, don't I? Because these squares are smaller than those squares. So what I need to know is, and what this is kind of telling me, is that these are not in scale to that, okay? So as I scale these down, then I can get these. So these squares are about the same size as these other squares, okay? Like I said, they don't have to be perfect, but you want to get them as close as possible. Okay, so now this piece is pretty good, okay? So now we can come in here, grab these pieces and pack them in. And that's a pretty nice unwrapped, it's pretty decent, okay? Notice that I'm not putting these inside the square, okay? And what I'm gonna do is this. I'm gonna go ahead and close this. Now I'm gonna bake this in. I'm gonna convert this into it so it's permanently in there so I can't accidentally lose it. Now what I'm gonna do is come in here and go, well, you know, if I don't ever see this back, okay, I'm just gonna delete it. I don't even need that. And I'm gonna take this bottom piece and delete that too. I don't need that either, okay? All right, so that's all that I need. As a matter of fact, picked another side in there. Back facing. Yeah, there we go. Okay. There is the final model that I need for this. I don't need that bottom. I don't need that back. It's not, we're never going to see it, so don't have it in there. Now, I understand that you think it's supposed to be back there, but we're trying to make this to use the pixels as efficient as possible and also to render as fast as possible. So I don't need things that I can't see, okay? All right, so now you'll see when we go back in here to our unwrap, that those pieces are not in here. Okay, and then the last thing I do before I move on to doing the next piece is I move these out of here. Okay, I don't want them inside here because I'm going to unwrap the next piece. It always goes in here and then the next and next and next, and I'm going to keep pulling them out because eventually I'm going to pick them all and pack them together. Okay, now what I would have a tendency to tell you to do is that we're not going to kick this out as a 1024, okay, so sooner or later what we're going to do is render a UV template, and we're going to do this as a 4096. 4096. Okay, and then you'll kick that out, and then we'll have all of our stuff. Maybe your room need to be maybe two 4096s, so you'll take your entire room and you'll unfold it into two bitmaps, and it'll be two 4096s, okay? You can do them as separate 1024s. You can do that too. But the thing to know is just to make sure that everything is scaled correctly so that everything has the same density of pixels on it and everything's unfolded in an unwrap so that it's easy to paint it and things fold around and flow together. It should not be individual little pieces. Okay, so hopefully that explains some things to you guys, and you'll be able to fix your rooms, because right now your rooms, I don't see any of them that are ready to go. Okay, thank you very much.